Hello and welcome to Business Daily from the BBC with me, Manuela Zaragoza. Coming up, the World Trade Organization is set to choose a new leader. But with the global trading system under threat, who'd want the job?
I want to lead the WTO because I believe there's an opportunity to serve all these countries in the world.
Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, Nigeria's former finance minister, makes her pitch. These days, she's a key figure on the corporate international stage. So what does she make of the Black Lives Matter movement? And what can the world do to help African economies weather the coronavirus pandemic? That's coming up here in Business Daily from the BBC. When it comes to African female heavy hitters on the global economy, you can't not mention Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. She made her name as a development economist with 25 years of work at the World Bank. She left to become Nigeria's finance minister, and these days she's on the boards of numerous big companies and organisations, including Standard Chartered Bank, Twitter, and the Bill Gates-funded Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunisation. But the job she's gunning for now is Director General of the World Trade Organization. She faces some stiff competition, and in a moment we'll hear why she thinks it's time for an African to head the WTO. Well, given all those considerations and the state of global trading relations at the moment, I asked Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala why she wanted the job.
I think the World Trade Organization is one of the most important multilateral bodies in the world. And despite the challenges it faces and the reforms that need to be done, I believe that it is very relevant for the economic development and growth and the sharing of prosperity in the world. And I want the job because I think I have the skills for it. I think that this organization needs some reforms to make it relevant for the times we're in, make it fit for purpose. And I have a reputation as a strong reformer. I've actually even written a book called Reforming the Unreformable, where with a team, we undertook very important reforms in Nigeria. I'm also a person with strong negotiation skills. I've had a career for over 30 years. I've constantly been involved in negotiating important agreements between countries.
And you're going to need those negotiating skills because the world is facing an American president, President Donald Trump, who is pushing against the multilateral trading system. The whole rule book for global trade has come under stress from tensions between China and the US. It is going to be a really difficult role being Director General of the WTO, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's going to be a challenge, but that's what I relish. I relish the challenge of being able to build trust. And I do hope that being an objective arbiter between the two and as well as other member countries, I can help to find what common interests are.
But President Trump, yes, he may be willing to negotiate with other countries, but he wants it all on American terms.
Let me say again that I believe the Americans know that they benefited over time from the WTO and the World Trading System. Other countries have also benefited. And I think what is involved is being a good listener. It is important to listen to what are the concerns of the Americans, what are the concerns of China, what are the concerns of Europe, what are the concerns of Africa, Asia, all the member countries, and try to bring them to the table around common interests. Because I strongly believe that this world we face today, we need a fora where we can bring common interests together. So in spite of all the words you hear, I think there is room to bring people together, to build trust around shared interests.
At the time of speaking now, there are 3 official candidates for the WTO Director General job. Someone from Egypt, we have yourself, and we have someone from Mexico. What would it mean for an African candidate to get this job?
For Africa, this is extremely important. Africa has never held the job. African countries feel that they also can benefit better from the World Trading System. Africa has negotiated a monumental agreement, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, to strengthen the economies of the continent, enable them to trade better with each other, and enable them to face the trading system of the world together. Africa's trade now is about 3% of world trade, and this needs to increase. So I think that having an African at the WTO is something that will benefit not just Africa, but the intention I have is to make sure that all parts of the world benefit.
The other big challenge at the moment, obviously, is the coronavirus pandemic. It's already having a big impact on global supply chains. How do you address that?
I think the coronavirus pandemic has really illustrated and exhibited some of the trends that were already ongoing in the world. The one thing that the coronavirus pandemic has shown is the interconnectedness we have in the world, the fact and the vulnerability of the entire world to these pandemics. But the interconnectedness means that no one in the world is safe until everybody is safe. We are strong as the weakest link when we're dealing with this pandemic. What does that mean? It means that the WTO and world trade can contribute, even as countries look at supply chains and wonder what they're going to do about the health equipment and medical supplies and so on. We need to remember that there are countries all over the world that will never be able to have the scale and the strength with respect to developing supply chains or even for strategic stockpiles. What happens to those countries? We need a world trading system and a WTO that can ensure that these countries also have access. It's in the interest of the whole world to make sure that we're all safe and secure from a pandemic. So that system has to be developed and strengthened.
How worried are you about the impact the coronavirus pandemic is having on economies in Africa?
I'm quite worried. And the reason is this: African countries felt the economic impact of the pandemic first, before they felt even the health impact. The prices of some commodities that we export, like oil, fell by 60% between December of last year and March of 2020. At the same time, there was capital flight out of the continent, remittances fell, tourism fell, and for the first time in 25 years, the continent's economy is supposed to contract by about 2%. In fact, the World Bank just put out figures that say 3%. So it's a heavy impact. And the second thing is that having to do the close downs and the lockdowns and the social distancing and other measures that our policymakers have so bravely done has also meant an impact on informal sector workers who have not been able to earn on a daily basis. So it's impacted the lives of households and ordinary people. And I want to say one thing here. It surprised everybody how strong health systems in developed countries have also been vulnerable. Our leaders recognize that we have to work hard on containment measures because our systems are weak. We are used to fighting infectious diseases on this continent. We've dealt with Ebola, we've fought yellow fever, measles, polio. We've got systems. We've managed to develop systems of contact tracing. We've also, in many countries, got systems of community health workers who are able to share information with the community. We have a system of communications using churches, our mosques, our local leaders. This has also been very helpful.
What about China's role in Africa now? There's been talk of debt relief for many African countries going forward to deal with the economic fallout of the pandemic. China has also signed up for that. But what do you think China's role should be in all of this? Because it's been such an important source of financing for so many projects in Africa over the last decade or so.
We are very appreciative of the G20 move to try to give Africa a debt standstill, of which China is a member of the G20. So China has signed on. We believe that the debt standstill till the end of 2020 will not be sufficient. As a result, we hope China, along with other members of the G20, will be able to extend the standstill for a couple of years to enable us to look at the debt sustainability issues of countries and groups of countries and see how we deal with this best going forward.
You're on the board of several very large businesses and companies, such as Standard Chartered, such as Twitter. You're on a lot of boards. I mean, do you sometimes wonder if you are the go-to African economist for these sorts of positions? When we know that companies are looking to increase diversity on boards everywhere. But should companies be widening the net? You're the person they seem to go to the most.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I mean, that would be thinking too much of myself. There are other very able and capable African women and African men. And at the drop of a hat, I could give you a list of 10, 20 people who are extremely capable. And they're also on other boards. So the idea that, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala is somehow special is not true. There are many like me. And I think it's the myth about Africa that there are very few people who are qualified to serve internationally. That is absolutely not true. I can tell you categorically that we have very talented men and women with broad experience. And we also have a very interesting next generation of women who are strongly talented. And one of the things that I'm doing and looking at is mentoring a lot of these women and young men and hoping that they'll take their place internationally as well.
What more do you think could be done by corporates, specifically now with the Black Lives Matter movement gaining traction everywhere?
It is so sad that we had to have the death of George Floyd in order for the outpouring we've seen. But I am very, very heartened by what is happening all around the world, the diversity of people involved, the diversity of opinion, the support that this movement is getting. So I think it's also a wake-up call for those corporates who have not woken up. I think corporates need to know that the world is changing in every respect. And part of that change is diversity. But it's not about diversity for diversity's sake. It's just that people bring very good and interesting perspectives on the table. So why not have all those perspectives on the table? I think that's what corporates need to think about.
But when you go to your board meeting or attend board meetings for some of the companies you're on, are you the sole black female on those boards? Or do you look around and think, I can see things already changing?
Sometimes I am. I mean, it would be not telling the truth to say that in many places where I go, there are many black women or many black people around. That's not yet true. I do believe it's changing. I do believe there's a consciousness that is coming there. And the other thing, once you're the black person on the board, once you perform well, it just takes away the inhibitions other people may have or any sort of hidden biases. And then they see that, look, they even forget you're of color. Once you perform and they see you have a brain and a head on your shoulders, and then that leads them to seek out other people without thinking of color. And then they look at their service, their record, their intelligence, and bring them in. And I see that happening more and more, not only because people are of color, but also because the people are simply good.
I was speaking there to Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala and her bid to become the next Director General of the World Trade Organization.
Trade is a force for good. I've seen it with my own eyes. Its ability to improve millions and millions of lives. I've spent my life working with teams around the world to deliver reforms, broker agreements, improve systems, fight corruption, and empower economies. Coronavirus has changed the face of the global economy and left many countries facing difficult choices. This is a critical moment for world trade, and the WTO has a vital role to play. It's time to come together. It's time for the WTO to listen to its members, seek common ground, hunt for solutions, rebuild trust, and return to its founding mission. My name is Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, and I'm the woman for this job. I want to bring a fresh pair of eyes and ears to the WTO and make it fit to thrive for the 21st century.